Welcome back to the Turn on the Music podcast. This is episode 17. We are on measure 2 of The Spirit of Music. And to discuss that, we have CJ. How are you this evening, CJ?
I am doing well. How are you, Kyle?
I'm okay.
You still, after this amount of time, you still don't introduce yourself.
Let me tell you what happened today. So I'm building a database that it monitors internet speed tests.
Okay.
And so I built the database.
This is for work, though.
This
This
is
is not
for work. Yeah, this
This
is
is
for
not
work.
personal nerding out. This is for
No,
work.
this is for work. So I looked at the database, and the default database said put in admin for user and the password. My brain interpreted that as put in admin for the account and password as the password. That didn't work, so I troubleshot this thing for 4 hours, assuming that the password was correct, and I tried to rebuild the database and the software and update stuff. 4 hours later, I reread the directions and went, oh, it says admin for the user and password. Admin. Got right in. It's like, son of a... 4.5 hours I spent doing this thing. It was like...
Are you the admin?
I am the admin.
That's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so we got Starlink at work as a
Interesting.
potential thing that we could offer other people. And
Expensive
they want to
Starlink.
monitor what the bandwidth is like over time.
Yeah.
So,
It's
but they
expensive.
also wanted a fancy display. And the way speed tests work is you hit speed test and it does a speed test. But they want it to be continuous. So I had to write a Python script to have it test every 5 minutes and then build a funny graphical display that looks pretty. And yeah, so that was what I was doing today.
Did you learn Python on the job?
No.
How did you learn it?
I honestly didn't write the Python script. I found a Docker container that had the script already written. So,
I know you knew you used to do C++, right?
no, I used to do a little bit of HTML and CSS.
That's what HTML. I'm sorry. Yes.
But very old. It's old HTML before.
Yeah. No, I remember because I Dreamweaver.
Yes, back in the days of Dreamweaver. Yeah. Back when we used to build websites and tables.
Yep.
We don't do that anymore.
No.
Yeah. So that's what I was doing today.
So what did you listen to while you did that for 4 hours? Did you listen to anything?
People walking in the door going, hey, can you help me with this? Hey, could you help me with that? Hey, this is broken. Can you come do this? That's what I listened to.
Oh, that's too good.
Yeah, it was crazy. So, I think that had I not had so many distractions, I would have figured it out much sooner.
Oh, sure, of course.
But, I had it was one of those days that I needed a turnstile at the door.
Right.
It was just we have a big meeting coming up a week from tomorrow that we are not ready for, and we had a pre-meeting for it today, and they realized that all the charts are not even anywhere near ready. So it's yeah, been fun.
That's interesting. You should just get a deli.
This is not water; it's something else.
You should get a deli counter so people can take a ticket.
It was funny because I was walking there. There was a line of people at my door. I was out doing something else. I just went take a number, and I just walked in the door. So yeah, I do need one of those.
That'd be great. Scan this QR code for a number.
There's a thing I almost bought on Amazon years ago, but it's a grenade and it's got a number on it. It says take a number, so you pull the pin and boom. So yeah, how are you?
I'm all right. It's funny. The past 3 days we had it was like a 3-day workshop on some new stuff and new technology and stuff within education. So it's actually pretty cool because you get a lot of group of people. You got there's K through 8 teachers and stuff. But on our end, they changed the password.
Was it password or was it admin?
Tuesday night. So we started on Tuesday. So Wednesday, everybody came in. They had to relearn. It was just so. And I'm not they got to do what they got to do. It's not. I'm not complaining about it. There's it was just really funny. It's just kind of ironic. But then we were having issues with people going onto the network and staying on the network. and I fixed a few of them. And you know me, I understand the networking and I understand all this stuff, but I don't know how the back end works, not
Mm-hmm.
as well as you do. So I go to the IT department, I'm talking to him, and he goes, "Let me show you." Apparently, there were like 4 computers that were sending like malware or something to the Wi-Fi, and because of the way the Wi-Fi is built, it knocks everybody off
Mm.
to protect itself, which
Right.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to blacklist like the 4 computers, and I had to go into each room and be like, 4 of you are not going to work. Like, this is what Luckily, everything kind of worked itself out, and it was just like it was one of those things where I always go in anticipating that there's going to be a problem, and I always hope that it's a problem that I deal with. And because it was the internet, I'm like, oh, because I can't do that. So
Mm-hmm.
and thankfully the IT team, I get along with them really well, and I can go in there and bust their chops and make it work. But it's just, it's like I can't. The computer doesn't want to run this like I don't. It was something I couldn't answer.
Right.
It was one of those things, but. Otherwise, that's it. That's done today. So tomorrow, not that it's just good to be Friday tomorrow. It'd be nice.
Yeah, I was hoping Friday was going to be a low key day. It's not going to be because we were supposed to have a dry run for this meeting today, and because the charts were needed so many fixes, they pushed that meeting to tomorrow. So now I've got a video recording in the morning, and then this thing that I have to run in the afternoon. So,
Are you building the charts?
mm-mm.
So it's just whomever is
Yeah,
doing the chart.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. They build them all, but I've got to build all the technology that supports all of the charts. So all the demos of the technology that we build, I have to make sure run by
Right.
tomorrow.
Are
So
you so have you listened to any music this week to kind of
not at
like
all. I have not listened to a note of music.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know you don't listen to it in the car. You're more of like podcast or whatever in the car.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, the last couple of weeks has been a lot of Corey Wong, and I'll tell you, I'm getting fed up with the speakers in my car. So I'm slowly going through what's left of the audio system from my old car and getting ready to build the new one in the new car. So
Less
um,
from your old car, from your
the Subaru that was totaled,
you took it?
I took the amplifier out.
Yeah.
That's about it.
I
And I
feel the
realized
same
that.
way about mine. I'm not happy with the sound and the
Mhm.
unit, but I'm gonna wait like a year because there's potential that I may like upgrade my car, you know. So I don't want to like dump it in and then
Right.
a year later,
Yeah.
trade in the car. If I decide in the next 6 months I'm gonna keep my car as long as possible, then I'll put a little money
Mhm.
into it. Because I'm in
Yeah.
it every day. If I wasn't in it every day, I wouldn't
Oh yeah.
care.
That's the thing. It's like I'm in it every day, and it's like I don't really enjoy the sound coming out of it. So I pulled the amplifier out tonight to look at it, and I realized that there's a quick disconnect power cable that I left in the car. So I found one online for $50. So that'll be here Saturday, and then I'm gonna start
Oh, nice.
building the rest of the stuff around that. So
That's cool.
I'll do amplifier sub first, and then I'll eventually do speakers. But
Are you gonna take a lot of space out of your car by putting in the sub and stuff?
I think in the beginning I'm going to put the current sub box that I have, so I'll lose a little bit of space. They do make one that's what they call a stealth box, and it sits on the side of the car, so you don't lose hardly any space.
Well, that's
I'll
good.
eventually get that, I think, but that's $1,000. I'm not gonna. I mean, I'm gonna put an audio system in right now for about $300.
Right.
So because I've
Makes
got
sense.
most of the stuff.
Right. Yeah. Are you reading anything?
Um, the Spirit of Music, obviously, and then I'm about to get into. So I have a Security Plus certification, and that's expires in July of 2024. In order for me to renew that, I either need to get another certification or go through like a whole bunch of continuing education hours. And I figure if I'm going to go through those continuing education hours, I might as well get a certificate out of it
Right.
or certification. So I'm going to go with another new certification. So I've been getting books for that. I haven't started reading them yet, but the test is a pretty substantial test. So
Is this the same certification you have, the security?
no, it's a different certification. It's a much
Oh,
higher
okay.
certification.
Yeah. That's cool.
So
Yeah, that makes sense.
yep.
Yeah.
The good news is the test used to be 250 questions and 6 hours long. The new version is now 100 to 150 questions and only 3 hours long. So,
Oh, that's better.
yeah.
Is it on a computer in
Yeah.
a room?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's that's the stinky part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Staring at a
So,
computer for that amount of time.
yep. Yep. So I'm working on getting set up for the class and then start reading the books and start figuring out what I don't know.
Nice.
It's going to be fun.
It's gonna be a blast.
Yep. So, speaking of books, shall we get into the book?
Let's get into the book.
So, we're on measure 2, which is entitled The Teacher. And the tagline is when the teacher is ready, the student will appear. And I'm not
And
in blind
you and
mode.
I spoke briefly before we got on, and we both kind of like said we don't have a lot highlighted in this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And and I didn't think about it because when you mentioned it to me, I didn't really go through the chapter to kind of check. Like I knew what the chapter was,
Right.
but I didn't go through it again. And going through it, I'm like, yeah, I can see that because it's more of a
It's really kind of setting the stage for the book.
yeah, that's yeah, setting stage for the book. So there's not there's some stuff in it, but it's really getting us into what the story is going to become.
Yep. Yep.
Because then the chapters get a little beefy,
Yeah.
or dense, I should say.
Yes. Yes.
So
So we pick up with Victor, who is going on a jog in his tights and yellow rain jacket and garden hat. And then he
that's what I
finds a
wear when I go running.
well. You don't run. Don't kid yourself.
Just saying. Which I was going to ask you the question. Do you feel so? He says he does this to help declutter his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you've spoken about how you're starting to walk again.
Yep.
I know it's very difficult for you, but
It is.
do you feel that that helps declutter your mind?
Yes.
Why?
Um, I think, especially now that I'm learning to walk again, which it sounds like I've been in a terrible accident. I have. I
I
wasn't.
know, I know, I
Um,
know. You spoke about it in the previous episode about
yeah.
how your feet were hitting the ground and
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff, and kind of like relearning how to do it
Right.
properly so you don't
So
hurt.
it's become a meditation because
Okay,
the meditation aspect of it is thinking about one thing. So it's thinking about how my feet are hitting the ground. So in that way, it's focusing on that and staying focused on that and not letting my brain get in the way. So it's similar to how I do meditation, which is focus on the breath or sound or something so that my brain doesn't get in the way. So I think that's part of it.
yeah,
I do also think that the nature part of it, like I talked about the bird and the cloud and that sort of stuff, like that is a big part of it. And I was watching, I don't know how I found it last night, but there was a guy, Peter something or other, and he drove into like,
weirdest last name ever.
yeah, well, it is a weird name. It's like Scavengerella, something like that. So he drove into like the heart of West Virginia, like really like the deep, deep part of West Virginia, the coal mining area. Um, and they were talking about to people, just what's coal mining like, and what's it like living in this town of like 250 people that all they do is mine coal, like.
Right.
So he was talking. He found a bunch of kids or young adults, and there was one girl who was 23. She worked in, I don't know what kind of a store, but she was saying that like 50% of her high school graduating class are all on drugs. The other 50% are trying to work and make their lives, you know. And she said, for a while I was on anti anxiety medication and it was making things worse. And then I started walking and hiking with my son and things got better because I was out in nature doing things. And
Sure.
so, I mean, when you do exercise, your brain does release, endorphins or whatever. So that makes you feel better. And, you
Right.
know, so there's that too that I
Right.
think helps.
Do you listen to music?
Sometimes, I did a little bit last week. Sometimes it's just podcasts that I haven't finished. Um, so
And
a
you
little bit of everything.
and you can focus on your walking while you're listening
Yeah.
to what's going on in yours. Okay.
The podcasts that I listen to are not very dense podcasts.
Okay.
Um, there's only two podcasts that I really listen to. One is called We Built a Thing, which has got three guys who are woodworkers. They just talk about their family and the projects they're working on. So it's nothing really dense.
Sure.
And then there's another one. I love this one. It's We Got the Chocolates. They're three Australian either rugby or cricket players, but they're just hysterical. They tell stupid dad jokes. They make fun of each other. So it's a comedy podcast. They're just like clowns, and they just joke around. And so it's nothing dense. I'm not really learning anything. It's just something I enjoy doing to keep my mind off of other things.
Cool. Makes sense.
Yep.
So, and you don't wear like a raincoat and weird hat
No,
and
no,
no, okay,
no.
good, because that'd be scary seeing you down the
It's
road.
usually toe shoes. Actually, I'm starting the toe shoes. Um, but yeah, and shorts and tank
Great.
top.
Yeah, great. Yeah, just don't put a raincoat on.
No, or a garden hat, and
Regarding that,
and carry a unicycle like
I carry
Victor
it's
did.
like which is what
So,
happens to Victor at this
yeah.
point.
So while he's out on a run, he finds a broken unicycle. He thought it was a bike. He thought he was gonna take it home, fix it for a kid, and turned out to be a unicycle. And like he said that as a kid, he used to ride around on a unicycle. I would have loved to see crazy Victor Wooten riding around on a unicycle like to class and stuff. Like
But I could totally like
I could
just
totally see it.
totally see him doing
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
Yeah, he says that a bunch of him and his friends would ride unicycles and they'd improvise costumes and they
Mm-hmm.
learn how to do like basketball stunts and tricks and they would
Yep.
just join their local town parade and do these stunts and stuff even
Yep.
though they weren't invited. But
Yep.
people loved it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like he's a crazy person. Like up until I think he was like in his 50s, every day, every year on his birthday, he would do a backflip
Yeah.
and he would put it on social media. Like
Yeah.
pretty cool.
That's awesome. I
So
can't do a backflip.
yeah, I can't either. I can
I
do back fat. I can't do backflip.
Oh, that's too funny. Um so then he goes into this is where I kind of like marked.
Hmm.
So he picks up the unicycle, decides to take it with him because he figures his dad could fix it for him. And then this paragraph comes up. It was a beautiful day and relatively warm for that early in the morning. The sun was low and not a cloud could be seen. I was happily surprised by a gentle puff of air on my left cheek, and then it was gone. Looked around, leaves weren't moving, they were motionless. He thought that was strange. And then he didn't feel the wind at all. And he took a few more steps and it happened again. But he said it was different. He said it didn't just blow on my face, it caressed me. I turned my head in its direction, offered a smile. I had convinced myself it was just my imagination, but then it happened again, this time on the other cheek. It was as if a cool, moist finger had gently stroked the right side of my face.
Hmm.
And I think that's interesting because, like, at first you're reading and you're like, well, that's just weird.
Hmm.
But at the same time, like, it's very plausible.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could just have been that moment.
Yep.
Um, and he mentions that he thinks it's one of those air guns,
Hmm.
but he says that he doesn't like. Typically, you can hear that pop,
Right.
and then afterwards, the air. Like he said, he
Hmm.
didn't hear pop, so it couldn't have been that.
Yep.
Like there was no one around. Like he was by
Yep.
himself.
Yeah. And
And
he kind of, suspects that it's music kind of pulling him because of, all the things he's been hearing recently. And on the next page, he says, "The wind, like music, is invisible. Although we can feel them both, we can only see their presence by the motions of the things they touch. Notes to music are like confetti to the wind." Which I just thought was a really cool way of putting it.
oh yeah, absolutely. And then he starts following the wind.
Mm-hmm.
He hears he's standing in front of a building, leaves and debris were dancing, in front of him. There was a wind chime, and it seemed to come from all directions at once, as if Mother Nature played the melody herself.
Mm-hmm.
And then he sees a flash of light.
Yep.
It was a UFO. No, I'm sure. It was a UFO.
Yep. And that flash of light introduces us to our first new person in the book, a gentleman by the name of Jonathan, who was sleeping in his apartment and had a bass guitar in his lap. And in walks Victor, kind of like Michael did years ago. and kind of the same conversation. The whole how did you get here? What are you doing here?
Right.
How did you get in? And eventually he says, you know, why are you here? And Victor says, I'm your teacher, or I'm the teacher, is what he says. Um, and then the same thing that happened in the other book, I can't teach you anything, I can only show you things. So Jonathan finally says, okay, show me music. He answers with hesitation, saying the word in a surprising way. And Victor responds, yes, I can do that, but not as well as music herself can. And that is something that we've talked about a lot, and something I'm trying to do is I'm, relearning music these days is trying to get out of the way so that I can learn from music. And it's hard,
It's hard
because
to
that's
do.
not the
Well,
way
it's
I was
hard to do
taught.
because of how we learned music
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and how we were taught it versus showed
Right.
it.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's very interesting. And I still feel like there's that. I'm not saying it's 100% there because I've been out of the teaching end of music for a while. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying that there aren't people out there that are approaching it differently. I'm
Right.
not saying that they're not. But the thing is it feels like it's not the case
Right.
unless you know we've listened to a few artists like Hannah Wickland,
Mm-hmm.
right? She's been playing since a young age,
Yep.
right? Corey Wong, he's been playing for a young age. The Nickel Creek, they've been playing since what we figured out they were like 8 or 9 years old that they were playing
Mm-hmm.
together. So
Yep.
they probably were playing before that, but
Right.
then they've been playing together. So they've been together for over 30 plus years,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yep.
I'm not saying it didn't have lessons or they didn't have this. It's just that there had to be something in their time for them to kind of like listen to music,
Right. Yep.
you know? And I always thought like, does that have to do with our is it a traumatic experience that keeps certain people from releasing it to the scent of, what's the line? Letting them listen to music herself?
Mm-hmm.
Like, did they have something happen in their past? Did they have some kind of experience that blocks the ability for them to kind of separate and really hear something else? And
I think part of it is just our culture. And I
right,
think that that's why, especially back in like the jazz era and the blues era, that's why drugs were so prevalent, and alcohol was so prevalent in these musicians, because they needed a way to release and they didn't know how other than turning to these drugs. And that's what they did,
right.
you know. I mean, I don't think it's as bad as it was back then. But then again, is the music as good as it was back then? I don't think so.
Well, but that also, back to that, it's music could also be the outlet to help.
Right.
There's like two different sides to this whole entire
Yeah.
thing.
If you
And
could find a way past that barrier, I think.
right, right. But it also brings it back, and I've said this before multiple times. I think that's the uniqueness of social media.
Mm-hmm.
I There's good, bads, and a different, and I think there's more bad than good. But I think some of the small good things that have come out of it are these musicians that we would have never heard of
Mm-hmm.
if it wasn't for the fact that they placed themselves in front of everybody on social media.
Right. Right.
And I think that and it's funny because in a way it started with like MySpace and people doing band accounts, and now
Mm-hmm.
MySpace is what I think mainly music related entertainment stuff,
Yeah.
if they're still out there. And I think that is a big deal, is the fact that we do, like, he even said it in the previous, and I think he mentions it in this book, like music is not the same as it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yep.
not,
Nope, it's not.
and that's why I say, like, we're getting like, we wouldn't have found Hannah Wickland if it
Yep.
wasn't for the fact that we were on social media.
Agreed.
How
And
did you Go ahead.
no, good.
I was going to ask you how you found Jacob Cobley.
Jacob Collier, YouTube. There was a guy, Charles Cornell. His video was, in fact, my sister just sent it to me 2 days ago. I watched the video years ago. It was 2 years
Yeah.
ago. I saw and the video is called "Why Musicians Like Jacob Collier," and I was
Okay.
like, "Ooh, I should probably watch this." That's how I
Right.
found him.
Right. Right. And I think that's one of the good things that came out of it is
Mm-hmm.
people like us who are looking for other musicians
Yep.
outside of the mainstream, what's on the radio.
Right.
That's where YouTube, Instagram, I'm not on TikTok, but probably TikTok, even Twitter, like that's just kind of where they came out of,
Yep.
and then, but from there, because of them, we learn about their influences,
Right.
which potentially are people that we know already, or are also of artists that they may have found
Mm-hmm.
through their growth and development and all that stuff.
Yeah, and then I think the other part of it is, we talked about it in the previous chapters. You know, we talked about how Victor goes through the what's he called, the ruler of music or whatever, and the record is like 12 inches, and then no, it was
Yes.
concerts are 12 inches, and then by the time you get to these MP3s and stuff, it's a very small portion of the original sound that came out. On the other side of that, if you think about all of these artists that we're finding that are not really out there in the mainstream, you know, think about the day. I mean, dating ourselves a little bit, the days in like tapes and CDs. Like we would have never heard of these people ever. Like even if we had social media, we'd be like, all right, that's really cool, but like I want to hear their stuff. These record stores and CD stores wouldn't have had that stuff because
Right.
so much of the stuff is done in a way that so like Spotify and Qobuz and Tidal and all these Apple Music, it's a way to spread music further than it used to be in the past,
Right.
and that's cool.
That is very cool. I think that is. And I think that's why you started seeing more independent labels come out, because it allowed them to do what they wanted to do and find a way to get this stuff out there. But to
Right.
your point, they're still limited to what and how far that
Right.
CD or tape is going to go and where they're going to be able to sell it and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and like Victor was talking about, like using compression and electronic music techniques and all these recording techniques. I think the same is true. Like there's a place for that, but there's also a place for these digital mediums to share this music. Like it's done if it's done in the right way and for the right reason. Like I think it's perfectly acceptable, to do that.
That's where the yin and the yang comes in.
Exactly.
It's finding the balance between those two things.
Right.
And I think that's a big part of what he's saying. And it's hard to find that balance.
Right.
But I feel like he's like, we need to understand the traditional end of doing things
Mm-hmm.
before we pull in those other tools.
Right.
And that, so that was so he says that, to repeat what he says, he goes, yes, I can do that, but not as well as music herself.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jonathan says, what do you mean herself? And Victor goes, you will see. Or not.
Right.
And I think that's interesting,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, so this goes into Jonathan asking, what instrument does Victor play?
Mm-hmm.
And Victor goes, I play music, not instruments.
Yep.
And
And
that
that
leads
reminds me.
into,
So, I had a friend who went to Vassar College,
okay.
and Taj Mahal played there once. And I don't know how to explain Taj Mahal other than he is like the MacGyver of music. Kind of similar to that guy Joe that Victor mentions in this chapter, who played a solo on his shoelace. Like Taj Mahal could pick up anything and make music with it. And I think you know, that's what Victor's saying there. Like, and then he picks up his unicycle and makes all these crazy sounds out of it. Um,
That's like Weird Al Yankovic.
yeah,
He developed that, I think it was like was it a toilet bowl seat cover? Was that him?
I don't remember what it was.
Or he created like an instrument and he was like, here you go. Got a
Mm-hmm.
new instrument, right?
Yep.
But yes. So
Yep.
he plays the unicycle.
Yep. And before he gets to the unicycle, he says this. He says to Jonathan, "You asked if I had a key. Music is the key. Your search for music created the spark that brought us together. My use of an instrument, any instrument, allows you to hear how musical I am. But I express musicality through the instrument and any one I choose. Again, I play music. And once you stop playing your bass, my page didn't turn, sorry. And once you stop playing your bass, you might start playing music too." And again, this is a recurring theme. We've talked about it before. If you go back to, you know, authors, like it doesn't matter what pen they use to write the story. Like,
Right.
and that's the same thing here.
They
Doesn't
may
matter what
have
instrument.
a pen that they favorite,
Right,
but it
right,
doesn't matter.
right. It doesn't matter. The story still comes through them. So
Right.
that's the
Right.
same point. It doesn't matter what instrument you have or what thing you have in your hand. And like we talked about, the Corey Wong Tiny Instruments a couple weeks ago. Like it doesn't like the drummer was playing on a kid's drum set. Like if you listen to the way he played that drum set, you have no idea he was playing on a kid's drum set.
Right. And whoever mic'd them did such a
Mm-hmm.
great job
Yeah.
because it gave those instruments so much depth,
Yep.
you know, and it showed their ability,
Yep.
which was even better
Mm-hmm.
on that end of it. Um, and then he asks his name, and at first he wasn't sure what name he was going to give him, but he decided to tell him the truth and say, "Call me Victor."
Mm-hmm.
And then he challenges Victor to play something,
Yep.
but he holds his bass guitar tight, so
Yep.
Victor was not allowed
Mm-hmm.
to use his bass guitar. So
Yep.
Victor goes and plays the
His
unicycle.
unicycle. Yep.
And, and that's when he tells a story about his friend who played on stage in front of
Mm-hmm.
thousands of people,
Yep.
his shoelace,
Yep.
and how he like bent it and stretched it to make the different notes.
Mm-hmm.
And like at first he said he tried and it didn't really work. Like he kind of like freaked out,
Mm-hmm.
and then he tried a few things and he decided to he took a breath, closed his eyes. He saw these lines
Mm-hmm.
that turned into a circle,
Yep.
and
And
he started
what he did was he going back to the first book, he focused on the groove.
he
And if you
focused on
remember, never lose the groove to find yourself a note, and that's what he did. Created a
yeah,
groove and just kind of went with it.
and he played it. He got into it. He started bobbing his head, doing all that great stuff. And then just towards the end, he takes a big inhale. Inhale. He held it for dramatic pause, and then he slowly placed the instrument on the floor with one hand raised and the other in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And he got Jonathan's attention.
Yep.
And then he goes into Jonathan, kind of like leaned forward in astonishment. And then after he knew he had Jonathan's attention, it goes, after a minute, I leaned in close, staring firmly into his eyes. An unexplainable energy emanated from my body. His face softened as he held my gaze, giving way to what I was about to say. And he says, listen to me, Jonathan. Now you know music is everywhere. You do not have to create it. You just have to feel her and become one with her. Then anything you touch can and will become your instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because I catch myself all the time, like tapping my hands, doing this, doing that, and I'll take like random toys that my son has, and I'll play them, and I'll do all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife has multiple times said to me, she's like, "You can make music out of anything."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's fun. Like I try
Yeah.
to figure it out. I try to figure out the pitch. I try to
Mm-hmm.
like I'll tap things, but like, is that a note? Like it, I do it for fun, but I'm. It's funny because I never thought about it this way.
Right.
It was just me having fun.
Yeah. But that's
But
the point.
and that's the point, and that goes
Yep.
back to what he said. He goes like a kid who just does it and doesn't care.
Yep.
And at that moment, because I'm having fun, I don't care what it sounds like. I don't care what
Mm-hmm.
people think. I'm just having fun, and then I end up like getting a groove and doing this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just funny. And you don't.
Yeah.
But when I pick up the saxophone, which you can't see on the screen, but I am pointing to it
Mm-hmm.
because it's hanging up on my wall. Um,
Yep. That's where that mental block comes in, and it's like,
it's exactly right. It's like, oh, I
what am I
actually have an
supposed to
instrument
do?
that I'm supposed to play in my
Yep.
hands.
Mm-hmm. What is this
And
thing?
oh man, there is one more thing that he writes and he says, where he didn't know where his next step was,
Mm-hmm.
and in the last paragraph he goes, I had to walk the path and teach myself, and the best way to completely teach myself was to teach someone else, or more accurately, show someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And then he ends it. He goes, he felt he was ready to continue the music lesson.
Yep.
Do you feel so? For me, I'll use when I teach in the classroom. I like to show more than teach. And I truly think that from me showing, I learn more in that moment.
Oh, I do too. Yep.
I know enough to show the those that are listening, the students, whatever, whoever I'm teaching. But as I go along, I start to realize, oh, well, now you can actually do this and you
Yeah.
can do that and learn. And by the end, not only have they learned stuff, but I've learned so much more.
Yeah. Me too.
And I love that. It's such a cool feeling to leave knowing that not only did you impact the people you were with and they felt good, but
Hmm.
like you came out of there going, oh, I got to go try this now, and I got to go do this, and I got to go
Yeah.
do that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And I'll like there are things that I learned while teaching, like they're so obvious, and like I've been doing this for so long, like you'd think I would understand it. But I remember I was teaching a lesson, and we were going over, I think it was the A flat scale, and the kid was having trouble understanding different key signatures and stuff. And I don't know what hit me, but all of a sudden I realized that all of the notes in the A flat scale are not in the A major scale. Every single note is different. And I went, whoa. And then I went, there are 4 flats in the key of A flat, and there are 3 sharps in the key of A. That adds up to 7. That and every scale is like that.
Right.
So the key of D has got two sharps. D flat has 5 flats. It always adds up to 7.
Right.
Like,
Which is what he goes about
yeah,
in one of the chapters in the
yep,
previous book with oh my goodness, her name. I can't remember her name.
Isis.
Isis, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Where they go through all that math.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like it never clicked until I was teaching this one kid, and I went, whoa,
Right.
and yeah,
It's those like little things that, oh, I never thought about it that
mm-hmm,
way.
yep. I had
Like
another
even
kid who was a great trombone player,
yeah.
and I realized that we would go through, like, one of the things that I did was we go through scales. The first thing you do, you walk in the door, we go through all our scales. Every scale you play. And I realized, because he went to NISMA and he played 3 scales, and I realized that they weren't in the order that we normally do them in. And I was like, oh, he's having trouble playing scales out of order because we always go in the circle of fifths. Like, all right, well, we got to fix that. And then I realized I had the same problem playing them on the piano, like, because I always go in the circle of fifths. Just do it that way. So I came up with this little thing where we'd take cards, and each card was the scale. So like an 8 is your C scale, like 2 is D. Reds are sharps and black are flats. So it was a random thing, and we just go through, and all of a sudden, like, he started playing his scales much better because now it wasn't, oh, it's the same thing we do every week.
Right.
Now it was a random thing. So I
And
started doing it with all
and,
my kids.
and a little insight. So we Kyle and I'm still in New York. Kyle's in Ohio, but we both grew up in New York. And New York has a competition called NISMA, which is New York State Student Music Association. Yep, that's what it
Yep.
is. And basically, you as a musician in every grade level, I think it's like fourth and on, or maybe sixth and on, but you learn a piece of music, and then you go in front of a judge,
Mm-hmm.
and you could do it as a singer or as an instrumentalist. As an
Or a
instrumentalist,
group.
you have to play scales,
Mm-hmm.
and they're random. Like they're gonna throw a scale out at you. Like you're
Yeah,
not gonna
each
know which
level
one it is.
has a certain list of scales that you're
Right,
expected to know.
right, right. Exactly. So you may go in with having to know six, but you don't know which one you're gonna play. That's right.
Right.
Exactly. And then you have to sight read,
Mm-hmm.
and then you perform whatever piece you practice. And then when you do that, they give you there's a rating, everything from 0 to 100, and then they take
Is it 0
those.
to 100 now?
I don't know. I'm I'm
It
I'm
used to
assuming
be it used to
I
be
may be
1 through
wrong.
4 was based in like 36 or 38, and then 5 and 6 are based on 100.
Maybe.
So,
Well, but in any case, the idea was that um, at certain grade levels, would go to your all county,
mhm,
and you would be a part of the band or the choir, and then you would
right.
do the all state, and you go to
Mhm,
the all. So you would have opportunities. So you could make it to all county and not all state,
right.
but you would make it to all state, and you could do all county as well.
Yep.
So it's like
And there was
it was
all
a
Eastern as
competition,
well.
but it was very like I remember it was always scales. It was always
Mhm.
scales, and I always thought, it's funny about reading this book and when they talk like, why are you practicing your scales? And you're absolutely right. That's the first thing that we would do,
Mhm.
which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it,
No.
but sometimes it becomes this daunting task,
Mhm.
and it could, kind of stir you away from wanting to play.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I always kind of treated it like the reason I did it every week was because kids hated it. And it's like, well,
I,
it's part of the thing, it's part of the
right.
gig. Like, it's not a big deal. You're just psyching yourself out.
Right.
Like, it doesn't really matter. And like as a pianist, like the scales that freak people out, like B, F sharp, and C sharp are the ones that freak them out. Like B is the easiest scale to play because your hands sit naturally over the notes. If you plop your hand down on the note B, like your fingers fall on the right notes, and if you
Right.
plop it up on from E to B, like they naturally fall on the notes. Like your hand naturally fits that. It's the easiest scale. C is so much harder, but it
I
doesn't have any
agree.
black notes, and kids freak out about that. It's like it's not a big
Yeah.
deal.
I'm not a piano player, but I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
yeah.
It's very interesting how we learned growing up, because we were totally taught versus showed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had a teacher, a private saxophone teacher in high school, and I thought he was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a mixture of both.
Yeah, I had a lot of teachers who were a mixture of both, but I think most of them favored the teaching over showing.
I he I have to say that he always had his horn out.
Mm-hmm.
He always had his horn out. He stopped using his horn when I was slacking. Like
Right.
when I probably didn't practice for the week or whatever the
Mm-hmm.
case may have been, and it was forcing me to be on my A game. Whereas
Yep.
like when I was doing well, he would join in,
Mm-hmm.
and he would, and all that stuff. But yeah, a lot of it. I mean, even when I went into college, I asked specifically for a vocal teacher that worked heavily on breathing technique,
Mm-hmm.
because I knew that mine was good, but I didn't, but it wasn't as good as it should have been for specifically a singer, forget
Right.
about instrumentals, but just a singer. And she even said to me, she goes, I have to say, she goes, not many people think of it this way. And she was like complimented to the fact I did it. And it's really funny because after 2 years of being with her, and I thought we were doing well, she's like, I think it's best that you move on to another teacher for whatever the reasons are.
Mm-hmm.
And I end up moving on with somebody who was in the group. I forget what group he was in. And he just took my voice to another space, which
Yep.
was awesome, you know. Uh, but he showed, both of those
Mm-hmm.
teachers showed.
Yep.
They didn't just teach, they showed. And that I think was the turning point for me to realizing, okay, this could work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. But I was 18.
Right.
That's the crazy part. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
started a lot later in life with the singing, but to think about turning 18 and it and trust me, still doesn't click. And I'm
Oh, yeah.
43 years old, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, but at 18, after doing stuff for how many years you're playing, and you're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
oh,
Yep.
that's how it is. It's,
Yeah, I think I was pushing like 25 years of like playing the piano, and I went, oh, wow. So
uh,
yeah,
that's crazy. So that was a short chapter,
sure was.
but like you said, it's a good stage for what's
Yeah.
about to come.
Yep.
Yeah. And the story, I have to say, the story with this book picks up so nicely.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good pace. I don't
Yeah.
feel like it's rushed. I feel like all the elements are there that are needed,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you get to the climax of it, you're just kind of like, okay, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay, cool, this is
Yep.
awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, it's a well written book,
Sure is.
and it's not a difficult read.
No, not at all.
He's not wordy.
No.
That's what I like about it.
And especially when the story picks up, like you want to keep going.
Right. Yeah, it's a little slow in the beginning, but you're learning about what it
Right.
is, and it's not slow like you don't want to read it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you get anxious for what's about to come,
Yeah.
because he does a good job of keeping you engaged with the story, even though he's building the stage.
Mm-hmm.
So, because there are a couple times in the first few chapters, I'm like, what does he mean? Like, when are we gonna find out?
Yeah.
So,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah,
So let
nothing more to
us,
say.
yeah, let's end it there, and we'll see you all next week.
Yeah,
Make sure you're following us on Twitch and Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. That'll all be in the notes as it usually is.
yeah,
We do go live Friday nights and Sunday nights, so catch us there on Twitch. That link is in the show notes as well. So I think that's it.
I think that is it.
So yeah.
Until the next one.
Until the next one.
Yeah,
Have a good one, everyone. Thank you so much for listening.
thank you. Yep.